Well, welcome everyone to the Fall Summit. We're happy to have you here. So we're gonna on the room and I'll go to the folks online. And then we've got a pretty full agenda, although we have we also built in some space to really make sure that we have time to talk. So so we have some flexibility in that schedule as well. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Rochelle Peterson. I'm the Associate Chief Data Officer for Wildland Fire. My position is, along with the folks on the data management program team, our positions are covered 50% by the Department of Interior and 50% by Forest Service FAM. So we really are intended to be interagency in nature, and that's the entire focus of our efforts is how we bring that interagency data together rather than the particular agency boundaries. So we'll just kind of go, I think I'll start in the back of the room just to have more fun. So hopefully we have an owl set up. So hopefully, you know, as you're speaking, please project so the owl knows where you are and can find you. How the sound and visuals are going, so hopefully that will help you feel more like you're participating. So let's start right here.
Good morning, my name is Brent Wood. I'm on the Irwin team, specifically Irwin.
Good morning, Elise Hawes. I'm the project manager from IROC and then the Forest Service project manager for Wildcat.
Morning, Ivy Slattery. I'm the program manager for CASC that works with Elise on IROC.
Morning, Chris Bizzo, also Wildland Fire IT project management.
David Yarnell, development coordinator for the core team of Network Innovate.
Brandon Green, Office of Wildland Fire. I'm the project manager for Irwin Informed and Informed Schools.
Eric Hyman, SAIC, implementation chief for Irwin.
Hi, good morning, Josh Lewis, CAL FIRE Assistant Chief, ABL Program Manager.
Morning, I'm Joe Tapia, I work for CAL FIRE out of Sacramento, and I work with some automated systems, including Incident, electronic ship tickets, IROC, and Irwin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Strobel. I am the deputy to the chief data officer of the Forest Service. Morning, everybody. Tim Person, and deputy chief of fire protection operations support with CAL FIRE.
Morning, Robbie Barnes. I'm a battalion chief. I'm the Alteris CAD business lead.
Nikki Saavedra, staff service manager, fire protection operations support. I'm Nina Ton, and I'm support as an analyst.
Ling Zhang, I'm a Venturia. I work for the chief data officer at the people.
Gabriella Branson, knowledge manager for the data management program.
My name is Kara Stringer. I'm the business lead for Irwin, and then the co-business lead for Wildcat, the DOI side.
Steve Smith, Director of Technology for National Association of State Foresters.
Good morning, Chris Garrett from Timmins Group.
Good morning, Ivy Williams. I'm the CAD program manager for CAL FIRE.
Good morning, I'm Paul Purdy. I'm the battalion chief of CAL FIRE. I'm the CAD and ABL field business.
And I'm Jill Kinsey. I'm with the U.S. Forest Service out of Nipsey, and I worked with the U.S. Forest Service fire folks as well as putting together the interagency basic boundaries. So your GACs, dispatch boundaries. If you find it in Nipsey Open Data site, those basic boundaries, that's me.
I'm Lauren Hickey, and I work with the data management program. That's the business data management lead.
Brad Howard, I work for the Forest Service, representing the CIO IT branch.
I'm Patricia Ireland, and I'm the PM for IDME and for the FEMS application.
I'm Elliot Sweat, I work for Technical, I deal with all things tables.
Good morning, I'm Mary Korean. Work with Innovate, Irwin product.
Don Hannemann, Wildland Fire Interagency Data Technology Lead.
Good job, you got it.
The first year.
Yes.
I'm Carlos Bossi. I'm with Data Layer. We're a consulting company, and I'm one of the architects designing this the solution you'll see today.
I'm Mike Spiesbach. I'm a data architect with Data Layer working on IBM.
Emmy Harbo, I support the data management office and I'm also leading the IBME effort. After Dark Horse Geospatial.
All right, so let's go to the folks online. So I'm gonna go down through the list and then, if I miss anybody, just speak up and we'll get to you. So the list will change. So Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Bailey. I'm the fire planner for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service located in Boise, Idaho.
Thank you. Great. Here.
Greg Beard, Texas A&M Forest Service. We use fire response and I do GIS in the EUC.
And Cole.
Hi, apologize, I'm not there. Basically, Elise told me I couldn't come down. No, I mean, I'm co-chair of the data management committee with Rochelle. And yeah, do work in the Forest Service FAM-IM team, doing, helping with everything data integration for many of our applications, and also business lead for the EGP.
And Patrick.
This is Patrick Del Pizzo. I'm a geospatial ecologist at the BLM Operations Center in the Division of Resource Services and serve as a liaison to BLM personnel at NIFC.
Great, thank you. Cameron.
Everyone, Cameron Dupriest, project manager with the iSuite. Closest I could get was Riverside, California. I'm based out of Kansas City virtually.
Wow. Pretty close. Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth Gordon with CASC, and I'm the architect on IROC.
AJ.
Sorry, I heard a AJ instead of a BJ. BJ Gleasner, Wildfire Operations Supervisor, State of Minnesota, Business NASF East on the Fire Reporting Subcommittee and the Inform Project.
Great. Wes, Paul.
Good morning, everybody. Wesley Hall. I'm a fire application specialist for the Wildfire Management Research Development Application Team and product owner for next generation of WFDS.
And Matthew.
Hey, good morning. Matthew Eckel, Intelligence Coordinator for the Eastern Area Coordination Center.
Megan.
Good morning, everybody. Megan Kephart. I am the Intel Coordinator at NIC and also the SIT 209 Business Lead.
Great. Steve Larrabee.
There it is. Hey, good morning, everybody. Steve Larrabee. I work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs at NIFC, where my position is the Fuels and Fire Analyst at the NIC, working with Megan and others, including Matt. He didn't look like he was in the Eastern area. I am on the Data Management Committee and several other groups, and I've been around for a minute.
Great. Steve Mantech.
Nope, sorry about that. Yeah, so Steve Manta, I'm sorry, I missed the introductions. I just jumped back on. My role is Wildland Fire IT PMO. So I did catch the first part of Rochelle's intro there. I am also half funded by DOI and half funded by Forest Service, USDA side. My primary role is to make sure that all the different entities within Wildland Fire IT are working together as a community and as an enterprise, as opposed to by individual entities. So in that role, setting strategic direction, working with the two agencies, state and local partners, again, to make sure that we're approaching tech as an enterprise. And I apologize for not being there this time. This is the first one I've missed. I've got a MRI scheduled for tomorrow, so couldn't make it, but I will be here online. So thanks.
Thank you. Marley.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry I can't be there in person. Marley Marshall, I work for IQCS as the business steward here out of NIFC.
Thank you. Scott, Mayor.
Good morning, everybody. Scott Mayer. I'm wrapping up the end of a 120-day detail working with Nick Intel.
Nice. Susan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan McClendon. I'm with the Wildland Fire Research and Development Application Group, like Wes, and my primary focus right now is on the WFDS NextGen application and its data needs. Thank you.
Jennifer McCullough.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer. I go by IFR. I'm at the BLM's National Operations Center, the fire program under Patrick Del Pizzo. I'm a contractor and I do whatever he tells me to do.
Great. Mike Thornley.
Good morning, everyone. I am not there today because I'm on the road. I am the Deputy Chief for CAL FIRE, and I oversee CAL FIRE's incident reporting.
Thank you. Dave Mueller.
Good morning. I work alongside Jennifer, also on the geospatial fire team out of the NOC under Patrick Del Pizzo. Thanks.
Noel Harrison.
Hi, Noel Harrison from FireWeb CAD.
Okay. Katie O'Hara.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Apologies, I couldn't be there. I tucked and rolled in from a fire assignment late last week. I am your NWCG coordinator for Data Management Committee, as well as NWCG's representative to the WIPIT program board.
Thank you. Julie Osterkamp.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Julie Osterkamp. I'm the BLM Fire Geospatial Data Analyst at NIFC. I am the BLM Business Lead for Informed Fire Reporting. I'm hoping to become very involved in Informed Fuels for the BLM on the Data Management Committee and the Geospatial Subcommittee. And I'm super sad to not be there in person. It's always, the Data Summit's always such a barn burner. And we have great conversations, so I'm just sad to miss it, but I'm on fire assignment on the flat fire. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. We missed you. Phyllis.
Hey everyone, I'm Phyllis Kirago from FireWeb CAD.
We'll come back to her. Rachel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel McCaskill. I work for MBS. My current projects are Informed Fire Reporting, Informed Fuels and Post-Fire, and the National Park Service FAMOUS program.
Thank you. Sharon Ramirez.
Hi, I'm Karen Ramirez. I'm the GIS coordinator for the Angeles National Forest.
Amanda.
Hey everyone, my name is Amanda. I'm data manager for RDNA. I work with Susan and Wes to manage data for our WIPDIS and IFTDIS applications. Bummer I couldn't be there in person.
Thank you. Stephen Langston. How about Ken Taylor?
Good morning. This is Ken Taylor. From National Park Service on loan to the WIFIT program. I head up there as the chairperson for the Architecture Review Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Thompson.
Hey, everybody. I'm Craig Thompson, and I work for the Office of Wildland Fire here in Boise, Idaho, as a geospatial data analyst. And I'm also the chairperson for the Fire Reporting Subcommittee. Wish I could be there joining you in sunny LoCal. Thank you.
Shannon Tippett.
Good morning, Shannon Tippett, Acting Division Chief for Fire and Aviation IT for the BLM at the Fire Center.
And Jonah.
Good morning, Jonah Vaughn here. I am detailed to WFM RDNA, mostly working on WFDIS Classic data uploads and updates at this time.
Hard work. Travis, very good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my camera's not working. Travis Vertigan, Predictive Services Coordinator, Minnesota DNR, in my day job, and then serve as a state business lead for the FEMS project, and just have a general interest in pretty much all things data, especially if it's fire environment data.
Tiffany.
Hello, Whitney Gomez. I work for CASC and I'm the product owner for IROC.
Nicole Williams.
Hello, everyone. Nicole Williams. I work for the Forest Service. I am newly acting Assistant Director for Fire and Aviation Management, Information Management.
Happy to have you. And my screen says one more, but it won't let me click on that. So if I haven't called your name, please speak up and introduce yourself.
Hello there. My name is John Hannemann. Pretty much everything's the same as Cole, except I guess I'm also project manager for Unit ID, the BLM's weather system, and fire code is probably what's germane for this group. Thanks.
And did I miss anybody else online?
Good morning, Stephen Bankston. I'm with SAIC, and I am on the integration team for Irwin. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right. Well, I think as you were listening to people introduce themselves, it's a broad group, right? There's lots of people interested in fire data and lots of perspectives that come together. And so our goal and objective with this meeting, with these data summits, is really to provide that opportunity to exchange information across this broad community and engage with folks that we might not otherwise get to spend a lot of time with, especially getting outside of the NIFC gated community, right? is one of our objectives. So happy to hear folks out in the field, out in the forest and the regions online with us. And so this meeting is actually part of our data governance process for the Wildland Fire Data Management Program. And we use these meetings as an opportunity to come together, have discussions. We know that a lot of times it's easier to have these discussions face to face. So this is an important part of this governance process. And we do make decisions here and we prioritize things for various projects and for the data management program and the data management committee specifically. So, this is an important meeting, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules. I know everybody's got a lot going on, and we're still appeal free. But we do use these meetings as part of the Irwin governance process as well. And so on Wednesday, we'll talk about some of that, but we were trying to kind of spread out the development time for the folks that are connected to Irwin. So we're having this meeting in September instead of October. So what I would ask you to do is just is to be attentive and participate. I know it's really easy to think that we can multitask, but you know, research shows that we really can't. And so what tends to happen is that we go check an email and then we miss a decision. And then 2 months later, we're like, wait a minute, I didn't know we did that. And so, so I just forewarning you, like, we really are making decisions here. We really are prioritizing things. And that really means that you need to be participating and engaging in that, so that we make the best decisions possible. Also, I would ask you to be attentive to the meeting process itself. We effective. We know that this is time and resources away from your day jobs, and we want to make sure that this is time well spent. And so please give us feedback, help us make the next one better. And so we, again, really appreciate your time and attendance and participation, and we'll go ahead and get started. I think it's over to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Part of that governance that Rochelle was talking about in our meeting, we have our action items that we come away with at each summit. And so this is really just a pulse check, looking at where are we on those action items. So I am not presenting on this. I am merely your moderator here. So we will start with fire code. So fire code application is due for a technical refresh, and we want to look at the business expectations. And so this was, the lead on that was the DMC, and Rochelle was going to reach out to Shannon to find out the status.
So I did talk to Shannon on this, and so so we know that fire code is due for a refresh. At this point in time, it is not scheduled, and so there continues to be some challenges in getting that done, and so we'll keep supporting them. And when they get ready to do that, we'll engage and make sure that anybody in this community that needs to be involved with that is. So, John.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, companion to that is we had submitted a proposal. I guess I'm almost thinking it was 2 years ago, but it kind of just went off and never got fulfilled. It was just a submission we had done to propose it, but it kind of got a little derailed on a different side, and it's never come back yet. So maybe we'll be able to dust that off, and this time we'd have to ask for funding. Originally, we didn't have to, but yeah, so any support you can get, that'd be appreciated. Thanks.
Yeah, it's funny, a little 4-character code, right? Sometimes it's the simplest things that we take for granted that really make a lot of difference. And so, so we do want to make sure that this application is functioning well in the community, because we have a lot of dependencies on that code. So, yeah, John, the DMCs, and we're with you. Anything we can do to help.
In that vein of technical refreshes, we discussed the need for sideboards and new investment for exchange. So how we give reviews or coordination on the standards out to all affected parties, and how they will get implemented into those applications, especially when wildfire as a business doesn't manage the application, such as Viper. So with this new data interchange, we're increasing our interdependence on systems, and so it makes the conversations that much more critical. There's ongoing work with the edge inventory and governance processes, and once standards are approved, we'll look at how we hold systems accountable. Anything else? Any additional items on that?
I think one thing I would add on that is that, you know, one of the challenges we always have is communication, right? How to get information out to folks. And so we'll talk about this several times, and Gabriella's kind of the SME on this, but through the data management program in partnership with the Department of Interior, we purchased licenses for a product called Adobe Campaign. So it's something that, like I said, the Department of Interior is using. And so we were using the Gov Delivery, thank you, before, and it looked like messages we were sending out were coming from OWF, and that was really confusing for the community. So because we got to start fresh, we were able to get kind of an area that's specific just to wildland fire in the interagency environment. And so we hope to be able to start sending out messages that way and you guys can subscribe to different channels to get information. So hopefully that will help with some of this because communication is always a challenge. So we're trying to build that foundation to support a variety of processes, but helping get these technical refreshes, implementing those standards and participating in commitments that are made in places like this. That's part of governance. And if we don't have good means of communication, then it's more difficult to actually have successful governance. And I see somebody has their hand up. BJ.
Yeah, quick question, or a thought. Will this include, when we think about the agile environment and that type of thing, will this include, lack of a better term, maybe a process framework that would allow systems to initiate potential refreshes and investments prior to the last element, which is it's ready for exchange and all that stuff? I'm thinking about systems kind of getting stuck in a cart before the horse type scenario, or the adverse, waiting for a waterfall development type process, which takes forever.
Yeah, I think I don't know that I can answer that effectively, BJ. I think this is one of those areas that this is where the business, data management, and IT really need to be coordinating well together. And I think we are not where we would like to be with that in this regard. So I think it's an ongoing process. And I think one of the things that we want to do in keeping this on this list is that we keep bringing ourselves back to it, so we can have these conversations and remind ourselves that we need to be thinking and working towards this as a collective. And so I think that collecting those types of requirements or desires and understanding how that goes forward is a good discussion point. Yeah, planting a seed, I think, is probably a good point.
I do wonder though, like what you mentioned, just for example, Viper, right? And so if we find ourselves in this chicken and egg scenario, and when we have a system that's core duty is to support the fire environment, and for the fire environment to be sort of the later thought. Yeah, I wouldn't say the last thought, but the later thought. And that might be of all of us, right? That's a different point. And I know we're doing a really good job trying to have communication and opening up those purview, that it's really a grander scheme, but it just don't know. I'm concerned with some of those pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it is, we work in a really complex environment, and we don't have a single point of authority to push down on anybody, right? It's a cooperative, collaborative environment. And so, my philosophy in this has always been, to the greatest extent possible, we need to make sure we have our house in order on the fire side, and that if we're working with somebody else, that we have really good requirements in place, that we have standards in place, that we can go to them and say, you're a critical component of this environment, and these are some guidelines that we would really appreciate you using to participate with us, right?
Yeah, and that's the part that's weird, because it's not my refrigerator, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I will say on the Viper issue that, this is one that came up at the spring summit in Texas. So in April, we talked about this. And so we've had multiple calls with the Viper team since then. And I was just a week ago or 2 weeks ago on a call with the Forest Service Chief Technology Officer staff, talking about, like, as they're looking at this, that we need to have fire folks involved in those business requirements, and they're kind of shuffling some things to make sure that that is a consideration, and that they make sure we've got a voice in the room. So that's the benefit of a governance process that can elevate things, that we might not have the ability to do ourselves, so.
Speaking of which, they did ask when during summit would be best for them to join the call. Go on with Ben Green right now, and I'm like, weirdly enough, we're kind of talking about you right now. It's just really hard to say, right? It's so,
yeah.
When you can join. It's kind of how I left it. Yeah.
Proposed business rules for incident data exchange standard. So that was discussed at the May DMC meeting.
Currently out for review through this week. And then based on the feedback, it will either be published or any comments received back against it, or we'll go to the steward and then they'll have time to adjudicate those. And the steward's gonna be the DMC. And some of the conversation, I think too, will just help moving forward, right? Just in that some of what's in that standard is kind of not in line with some of the recent direction that was received.
Okay, I'll look at that, yeah. So that's what the comment part is for, right? So we utilize the NWCG process for putting standards out. So we think about NWCG has incident standards and training standards and operational standards, and also are how we do data standards and data layer standards. And this is kind of our first foray into doing some data business reporting kind of guidance and standards. And so that review period is really important to get feedback from folks. So keep working that.
I think that bears repeating. Right, the review period is so important. And if I'm after the review period and then it goes active, all of a sudden there's comments.
Yeah.
So I know it's hard during fire season and all, but
it's hard during fire season, and it is an aspect of human nature that we've got 15 plates that we're trying to balance, and until it becomes urgent for us personally, we tend to put it off. And so we're just promoting the fact that if you don't pay attention now, it will create some urgency in your life later. So, just a reminder.
Yes. Sorry, were we all supposed to have gotten this? So for some the
I definitely
NWCG
haven't looked at it, I'll tell you.
Okay, I'll make sure you get it. The NWCG Data Standards and Terminology Board is responsible for facilitating the process for standards, which I am the chair of. And the way the process works is somebody in the community, anybody, can recommend new glossary terms, new data standards, new relationship or exchange standards. They come to the Data Standards and Terminology Board. If they're new, that we identify who the steward NWCG committee should be the steward of the term or whatever it is, and it goes to them to kind of review the proposal. If it is an existing standard that's out there, then it goes to the already identified steward. They then come up with what the final proposal should be. We put it out for a 30-day comment period. The notification process, which I am looking forward to having our Adobe campaign, because right now the way it works is I work with the NWCG executive admin who sends the announcement email out to the NWCG committee chairs, and then it's their responsibility to then send it out to other channels, as well as on the NWCG website, you can sign up for data management topics. And so those folks should also receive that. Yeah. So we might be missing some people. Yeah, and this one actually went over line by line during the Spring Summit. And then we got some feedback right after the Spring Summit, and we incorporated that feedback that we got during the summit. I think it was primarily 10 or 12 comments or whatever that we put in there. And then worked with Cole and Rochelle, fine-tuned a little bit. And I thought,
yeah. So yeah, again, communication, we'll keep trying to get stuff out to you.
There's a question online as to whether there's a link to other business rules for incident data exchange.
I do believe we have it on the NWCG page. I will find it and put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, Steve said he wasn't seeing it on the proposed standard part.
Okay.
Okay. all hazard versus wildfire endorsement on qualifications. So we, yet again, is the DMC. We're going to discuss with NIMSIC on how it's affecting data management. Question is, how will dispatchers pick the right qualification to fill when someone has both all hazard and wildfire quals? Does an assignment in all hazard maintain currency for wildfire, vice versa? Is there a relationship between the incident type and the endorsement? And so we did say we needed an answer by June, but I believe we've heard nothing back from NIMSIC. And Kara, I believe you had talked about Irwin pushing to V10 since no decision had really been made about such things.
Yep.
The priority has been the learning.
Unless somebody knows anything else.
So anyone out there know any more on that discussion?
We did have some conversations with Steve, the chair of the NIMSIC, and honestly, it's one of those things where they went, data?
Yeah.
We should be thinking about data. So on a little bit of a education opportunity there to kind of get them thinking about that. So,
Well, Marley and Julie and I put together sort of a crosswalk, some ideas and sent them off, and I think it's just been competing priorities.
Yeah.
Yep.
so we'll keep working that one.
All right, historical value. So best practices or general expectations for data management. Legacy data. We've talked about having a new dimension in IDME or available in the marketplace. So DMC is looking at how IDME can help manage across time, fire cause, event kind category, unit IDs, how that has all been changed. And so this still needs to be documented and is probably a per use case sort of issue, depending on, when cause changed. But we are leaning heavily on edge as well as the future of IDME to manage that. Anything else?
Yeah, I would just say, think about that as we get started with the data architecture and the IDME conversations. That, how we would want to link data, and there's all kinds of ways that we talk about our data having breaks in it, right? So I was with BLM when I first started, and so like every 3 years, BLM reorganizes, and so districts and field offices go into different districts, and all that kind of stuff. Usually the boundary itself didn't change. Talk about ROS data, right? There's different versions of ROS data, and then we have IROC data. How do we tie that together over time so that we can do analysis? So there's all of those types of data sets. With me and fire staff to inform, there's just, we're constantly dealing with that. And so, especially as we talk through the data architecture and IDME stuff today, think about some of those use cases. Let's talk about some of them.
Financial systems data sharing. So DMC was to coordinate with IBC.
Yeah, and that's an ongoing conversation. This is again, coordination and integration with systems that we don't own and that we're mere stakeholders in. And so getting on the list of priorities sometimes is a little bit challenging, but we'll continue to work on that. And I think the Irwin team is looking at bringing some financial data in, and we'll have to be a little bit slow and careful about that, as it can be considered sensitive in some realms. So more to come on this one, I think.
Charge code on the NEBOR, holding with NCSC.
I didn't hear Sean on. Did you guys hear Sean Peterson?
I didn't see Sean.
I'm sure he's busy. This had to do with changing whether it's going to be
changing the form itself,
fire code, and then also as we start to talk about integrating state financial codes, if there should be two values there or not.
Yeah. Keep working on that one.
So far, I don't know who's taking notes, but we haven't closed any of these out. Just keeping tally.
It's my note page.
So follow up with Bear, et cetera, request related to event relationships. And so Irwin's had that mechanism for relationships since V8 standard. So that is there technically. Now, whether systems are using it or not, I think is the question perhaps.
They were looking for more specific guidance, and so we worked through the standard. And I've actually sent it to Gabriella for her to start putting out there, but it's done, it's ready to go. And there's more than just that one. We did all of the relationships with the standard. I think is what the DMC had asked us to do. And so that includes conflict detection and resolution, establishing OR relationships when conflict detection isn't met, escape prescribed fire, bear, bar.
Bear and bar.
Bear and bar. And am I missing, Mary? Am I missing one more?
Complex emergency.
Complex. Yeah. It's a very different looking standard. It's kind of a loose chart. I mean, it is, but it's not, but that's it. The workflow is what the standard looks like. And I think that's okay. It's just, it was sort of uncomfortable at first because we're so used to so much language, but we did put a lot of language in it, but also the visual, which I think will be helpful for teams.
Yeah, I think that this is really, really representative of the fact that we've matured beyond just needing a one-page data element standard, right? We're really starting to get into these more complex mechanisms. And so when you talk about relationships, how do we standardize relationships between those data elements and between records? That is a lot more complex, and it does take some more time to think through that. But it's I think it's a great way to measure our own maturity, in that this is where we're struggling. We've kind of gotten through some of the easy parts, right? Like if you think that single data element standard is easy, but relative to what we're trying to do now, it's easy. So
yeah, we're getting some feedback too, and I think once we're finally completely an edge, it'll be so much better. But just the fact that I heard from the field quite a bit on business rules versus standards, and in a separate document, right? Because they are, and they actually always have been. Definition and values have always been separate, but I think we're actually looking at it a little bit closely too. And I think when they can reference edge, have it all right in front of them in one spot, helpful.
Extending the WIFIT PMB memo. I believe some more discussion has been had now that we've reread the memo, and it may just be more clarification.
yeah, I think so we had a good conversation about this on the WIFIT program board a week ago. Yeah. And so I think it's easy for us. This memo was released in 2017, and so it's easy for things to kind of morph in our minds, right? But in general, the consensus is that memo really was about wanting to promote the use of data sharing brokers rather than having a large point-to-point data exchange approach. And I think people still agree with that. We recognize that Irwin isn't the be all end all for every data exchange that we want to do. And so we need to think through that a little bit more. And as with things like IBME come on and some new capabilities that goes that way, we're still going to be looking at what the best way is. But so I think there'll be more discussion about this, and hopefully some guidance that will come out at some point that will help application teams in particular understand how to assess and make decisions about what the best way is to share data.
I think what should always be highlighted in this conversation is there's this massive additional workload being put on some individual applications to serve as an integration service that is not within their scope. It's not within their business requirements and their business needs to do. And so it's impacting them in a negative way, right? Yeah. making them not be able to go through with work they're trying to get done in order to do that piece. And so I think they're in a terrible situation all the time because they're like, well, we have to do this. But in actual fact, this reference, this document is helpful for them to be able to be like, actually, no, here's a better option for you.
Yeah.
So I just want to sort of unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
Records management. Yeah, the lead on this is DMC, and DOI records management talked to the DMC and we provided a list of interagency applications and continuing to coordinate with them as they work on the new DOI records management. In the past, they had leaned heavily on Forest Service, and now we have to come up with our own. Ideally, they mirror, but.
Yeah, the difference is, so DOI took the Forest Service record schedule for wildfire records and pretty much just replicated it as far as the records go, but DOI added a couple of components that was looking at digital records. And so, in our conversations with them, I got a little anxious, just because they were talking about NARA wanting to have like snapshot of the database and a snapshot of the data in the database, and like, so trying to kind of work through understanding what that really means, and NARA doesn't really have that worked out yet, so there's nothing coming at us, no train in the tunnel yet, but definitely something we want to kind of keep track of. And I think the other conversation that we're going to be having with NARA, maybe this fall, again, we'll pick that back up, is that our data, right, like if you went to IROC and you wanted to get the GOI resource orders, right? Like, what does that mean from a NARA perspective? Is that because Forest Service manages the system, but DOI records are in there, right? And in talking to some of the folks there, they're like, they didn't really have a concept of intermingled records like that. And so that, I think, is going to continue to be a conversation for us. And the fact that we have state records in our federal systems, and NARA doesn't want state records. And it's like, but I mean, like, there's a lot more conversations we'll be having with the archive folks about how we handle these interagency records as we are moving towards this place where our data is more and more interdependent and integrated for them. So continued conversations with them. Craig has a question.
Yeah, Rochelle. I think earlier in the year we talked about that NARA was wanting to have a DOI have a our schedule of inserting data to be retained different than Forest Service. Is that still on the board, on the plate, or do they really care?
No, NARA told the Department of Interior that they could no longer use the USDA Forest Service records scheduled for wildfire records. The DOI had to have their own. And so DOI is in the process of doing that, but they basically lifted and shifted the Forest Service record schedule to DOI because that's what DOI has been falling under for some time. So there should be a significant difference that way. The other thing is that they've been working really closely with the NWCG committee that involved with the incident records schedules. And so it shouldn't be an issue from that point. It's just on that other end with the digital stuff that it might get at some point.
Okay. All right, thanks. And I was wondering, we probably, maybe this goes without saying, but instead of all the DOI bureaus having their own schedule, we should probably have one DOI schedule.
Yeah, so that's the goal, is that DOI will have one schedule that the bureaus and offices of the DOI would implement.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Communicating a change to data standard element that affects the geospatial data layer. What's going to be our process? And this goes to that larger conversation on how we're communicating. I think we've already talked about Adobe Campaign. We also wanted, it references how we handle the new domain with legacy data. That's another thing we're looking to IDME for. And then another question on that was, does the geospatial data standard automatically get approved when the standard is approved. And I don't know what that question was really driving at.
What it was driving at is if you look at our geospatial data layer standards, we have a series of attributes, and those attributes will often point to a data element standard. And so the concern is that if we make a change to the data element standard that is referenced in a geospatial data layer standard, is that automated? Do we how do we coordinate that? And so that is we keep that in mind as we're working on the enterprise data governance product and how we are able to link that data so that we know if we make a change here are the 15 places that get impacted by that. And getting all of that mapped out is critical for us to be able to make those types of changes. The other thing is that we're looking at ways, and with Dawn on, I know he and Gabriella have been digging around in Edge and thinking about different ways to do things. And the goal is that we want to know we're going to make a change here. Here's all the places that gets impacted. And it may be that we can implement governance processes that say, in this scenario, it's automated and it just happens, but maybe there's some triggers that we're going to need to identify that will say, this will need to be reviewed. But this is again where it becomes critical for folks to participate in the NWCG standards process. And it's to provide those types of comments, have that sort of awareness. And it's incumbent upon the data management program to give you the flags of warning that say, hey, by the way, this may be a data element standard, but it could affect these geospatial data layer standards, or it could affect this form or this application. And so that's part of the goal that we, so that you can see, oh, this might actually affect me where I might not have thought it would affect me originally. So both of those things are, they're going along, and hopefully we'll be able to bring them together tightly enough that it will help with this.
For Edge is the nightmare to find. If I have a regular data standard within a geospatial data standard, attribute, you created the geospatial data standard later and didn't know about that individual regular data standard. Definitions are different. It's so hard in PDF to track that stuff. With Edge, it's much easier.
Okay, well, and that concludes our list of action items. Now, these last 3 or 4 were from the data summit that we had this past fall here. So we have a growing list, but we continue to work on things. I did not include all of the action items that we did complete. I think we just checked the box and we moved on. So that's it. I believe toss over to IDME for y'all's presentation. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. How are we gonna make sure that these things go over for this next really? What is the plan for actually keep real?
On our staff meeting, we should probably be reviewing these at least once a month.
My question is, what are we going to do to commit as a program, but also to our audience to make meaningful progress on at least that's a lot of stuff. So I would suggest that we prioritize them. And pick, can we focus on 2 or 3 or something manageable to get them moved forward, and what is really, how do we make some progress and not just keep adding to them every time we come to the summits?
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I would also say that I think there's a lot of interdependencies in these items, and I think when we get within IDME, as that starts coming up, that there's some of that's going to solve itself in there, but I don't want to lose them. And the other thing is that we will commit as a team to being better about monitoring them. But I do think, we've made progress, and we need to get better about celebrating the things that we have accomplished. We just have got things off the list. The next time we'll
keep you.
We'll add those things that we did do.
Done.
A little bit on that, I feel like something with that, like you said, some of it is more communication. Shows what rather than just what hasn't been done.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna hand it over to the data architecture team. So so many of you were probably here last April when we were down in Texas, and Carlos and Mike and Wayne and Emily went over the first 2 proof of concepts that they had done. So what we're gonna have them do is go back to the beginning. We're gonna go through all 3 proof of concepts. They're gonna show you some of the work that they've done on time and the dimensional model they've developed for time. And one of the things we want to do with this is we recognize that as a community, my experience has been we're really notorious for developing these conceptual products. So we'll develop a conceptual architecture, conceptual roadmap, a conceptual whatever, right? And we struggle with taking that concept and talking about how we actually would use that. So part of what we want to do today is take advantage of being here and talk about how you would actually do that. So they're going to go through this dimensional model that they built for time, which provides time at the local level, right? So let's talk about how would you actually use that if you were an application? How would you utilize that capability? And we also are looking for opportunities for you to ask questions about specific use cases. So as you're listening to the conversation with what Carlos and Mike are going to show you, like if you have a use case that comes up and you're like, oh, I wonder how we would do that, right? Write that down, because then what we want to do is have some conversations about that. And Carlos will walk us through like how you would do that. And if the opportunities arise that there's something that you would like to see how you would actually do that, they've said they're willing to like actually take a use case and go back and put it together tonight and bring it back tomorrow morning and show us what that would look like. So we're really wanting to make this, we want to get a little bit deeper in this. We don't want to be talking about this data architecture conceptually anymore, because we're moving forward with IDME. And so please kind of keep that in mind as we go through this. And I would say this is big and this is complicated, and it's something that most of us don't have a lot of experience with. So the learning curve is steep. And there is no question that anybody could ask that somebody else in the room isn't going to have or go, oh, that's a great question. I'd really like to know that, right? So please ask the questions and let's have the conversation, because we really do want this to just be a learning opportunity and a coordination opportunity. And do we have a break?
Yes.
Yes. 10:40.
Okay.
We can do a break
now and then come back.
Yeah, let's take a little break.
Okay, so let's do, what do we got, 15-minute breaks?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take 15 minutes. Get your coffee freshed up, walk a little bit so you're awake and alert, so we're ready to go to this conversation.
For those of you who forgot water, I brought water in the bag, so feel free to grab some.
Thank you, Brandon.
When you made me nervous, I know they talk to me. It's in your brain.
Okay. So it is.
Well, I mean, so it is questions.